now in the studio with how the city is recovering is Buffalo Common Council President Darius Pridgen. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We know that you've kind of been out and about in the city today, and I want to ask you about the state of things right now and how are things looking? You
know, things are improving. We're not there yet by any means. Crews are still out. I've been out almost every day when it was acceptable to look at the district, to assess damage, but they're still working. Just now, I just saw big payloaders still out there into the night, and so the effort continues. We're probably, more than halfway. I know of what the administration has said. Almost every street has had a first pass. Of course, there are some exceptions, but I know that they're working very hard to get there.
And that's part of the effort, the cleanup. And there's also that human effort as well. The National Guard and even common councilors going around and checking in on people. How is that going, and how is that process structured?
Well, what has happened during this storm is that regardless of what your official title was, you became, a helper, and you had to get out there. I know most of all of my colleagues have been outside. They've been, helping people. We fed like 300 people yesterday from the church. I learned how to drive a snowplow for the first time in my life, and people were surprised when I would just pull up and say, "Can I help you here?" And they go, "How much?" Because they've seen so much price gouging. But people have been doing that over and over. It's not just me. So many people across Western New York and people coming into Buffalo to help. That effort continues. So it's not about the title at this point. The title is good citizen, and that's what Buffalo is made out of.
I want to take you back a week, because if you think a week ago today, we were bracing for the storm. We knew that it was coming, and I know that you've heard criticism about how it was handled, how we prepared for it. Should Buffalo be better prepared for blizzards, all of that. What's your take on that? Do you think that there's something more that could have been done to get ready, and more things that can be done once the snow does fall?
Well, I think it's like anything else. I don't think that you can't say we did everything we could have. I think that the administration and others, whether it's the county, the city, they did at that time what we could do. Listen, we haven't had a blizzard like this since 1977. And at the end of the day, I think instead of saying, for us as a city, instead of saying, yep, we did everything. No, let's look and see. Now let's evaluate what we did very, very well, and keep doing that, and what was done that poorly that we need to change, and what new equipment that do we need in situations like this. You hear a lot of people saying, hey, we got to get snowmobiles. Right. I talked to a police officer earlier who said, we can have snowmobiles, but if we're not running them constantly and checking on them when it's time to get them, they won't run. But I say, let's evaluate it. And let us not say, oh, there's nothing and we did everything we could. There's always something more we could have done. One thing I won't do is pass the blame to the administration or pass the blame to the county or the state. No, we're all elected. And at the end of the day, let's look at what happened and replicate, because there's some good things that happen, and then there's some things I think we've got to say, how do we change?
Yeah, particularly when you have the loss of life that we had in this storm. What are some of the questions that you have?
I think that at the end of the day, everybody's talking about the snowmobiles. My question is, will they work? Can they work? Is there other equipment? But what I don't want to happen is to wait. Like, this has to be talked about. I intend to ask the Department of Public Works next week to come into one of our committee meetings, debrief us or brief us on what occurred, and then ask what is it as a city that we're planning on doing to add. And if this is how the weather pattern is about to be, we do need a blizzard plan, and we need an emergency plan of how are we all going to work together in states of emergency. And I think it's okay to say that. I think it's okay to own that none of us expected a blizzard. So when, it was reported this was coming, I think even some people who were outside, they just didn't believe that, they thought they could get home. So I don't pass blame. There are people saying, well, why were they out? That's not even the question right now. That's not even the question. The question is, how do we do better so we do not lose lives as we did this time again?
What are you hearing from people, or what have people said to you?
You know, there's been a mix. You know, there's some people who are angry, and I understand that when you've been plowed in for days, and you know, we are dealing with different mental things, and so you hear people go, "Why isn't my street plowed out?" And I've tried to be as calm as possible, and we've been making the calls. Especially, we had a woman who needed to get that to dialysis. And I made calls to different government officials. They got her out of that house, or people who were stranded. But there are still people who are angry, and I understand that. And I think we all have to be patient with one another, that we have to work together. And that's you know, for the most part, when we were delivering groceries yesterday, people were just grateful. I had not one person go, and this is a crazy thing. I went there as Pastor Trubeto, but I didn't have anybody stop me and go, "Hey, council member, why?" You know, they were like, "Thank you." Right. And so I think at the end of the day, many people do understand this was, people keep saying once in a lifetime. I'm not sure if we can say that anymore, because now this is twice. It was a long time in between, but we still have to look and say, how can we better prepare for something like this if it happens again? And we got to do that quickly.
Well, we appreciate you coming in tonight, and of course we'll have much more conversations, I'm sure, as time goes on. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Darius Pridgen, thank you so much.